The new now is here. You need an out-of-the-box user-friendly platform that will help you transition smoothly to the new normal. You need vSmart School. vSmart School is a one-stop teaching and learning online platform perfect for hybrid learning.
And welcome to our GEC webinar series. For today's discussion, our topic would be on intellectual and cultural life through general education courses. Before we begin, take note of the following reminders. Make sure you are registered to the webinar to have your e-certificate of participation. Visit certificate.vibalgroup.com to generate your proof of attendance. Place your questions on the comment box allotted during the session, and they will be addressed by our speaker later on. Share the video using hashtag LearnAsOnePH as our official hashtag to our VIBAL webinars. Experience learning, ka-VIBAL. And now, to proceed with our session this afternoon, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker. He is one of the top 10 reading and preschool specialists in the Philippines and is a sought-after resource speaker, lecturer, and consultant to various seminars and conferences here and abroad. He has written various books, modules, let review materials for the Philippine Normal University and for other colleges and universities all over the country. He graduated with a Bachelor of Early Childhood Education degree cum laude, and a certificate in reading specialization, recipient of Service and Leadership Award. He received his Master of Arts in Teaching with specialization in reading at the Philippine Normal University. Outstanding reading graduate. He took PhD in Reading Education at PNU and took PhD in English Studies units at the University of Santo Tomas, Manila. And now, he's finishing his PhD in Curriculum and Instruction at the Philippine Normal University, Manila. While having all of these independent consultancy projects in DepEd and other private school associations in the country, he was serving the Sisters of Mary Schools Philippines Administrative, Research and Development Center as their academic and curriculum consultant. At the same time, he is the education consultant of VIBAL Group Incorporated. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our speaker for this afternoon, Brother Roderick M. Aguirre, PhD.
Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A rainy afternoon to everyone here in Cavite right now. We are experiencing thunderstorm this past few days. And that's why I would like to apologize in advance that there's a possibility that my connection will be disrupted every now and then because of the thunderstorm that is actually happening right now since the past few days. I would like to give a shout out to Mary Ann Ramos Baktil from San Pablo who's watching right now. So thank you very much for tuning in and being part of the VIBAL session on learning together, learning as one. And together we get to understand how we will be able to cope with the new normal in the school year 2020 and 2021. Let me share with you my PowerPoint presentation for this afternoon. All right, so my topic today, well, this is one of my most loved topics when I give sessions to schools and when I do consultancy to schools that I manage. That is on how we can enhance, not just develop, but enhance intellectuality and cultural engagements of our students in various levels, be it local, national, or in a global arena. What we want to do is to come up with a curriculum that is conducive to possible integration of many ideas and many concepts so that our students not just become intellectual, but also movers of change in society. That's why my subtitle for this afternoon is Developing Multiculturalism Among Adult Learners in the Philippines. This topic helps teachers how we can deal with our students who have prejudices and biases against other people. One good example is that a lot of people a lot of Filipinos, when they see someone mispronounce a word like today becomes today, and boy becomes boy, buoy, automatically they would say, Bisaya ka man dong. So that comment, although it may not mean a lot to the one who's saying it, but it's something derogatory for the person who's receiving the comment. So what we want our students to become is that they're not just intelligent, but also are sensitive enough to take care of the emotional and social needs of others and be able to empathize with others. Because the Philippines is an archipelago and we have a lot of cultures. Again, I will not use the word subculture because I believe that all cultures in the Philippines and the world are all in equal footing. So I cannot say a particular culture is a subculture of a bigger culture. I cannot say that Batangas Tagalog culture is a subculture of the Tagalog culture or Manila Tagalog culture. No, we cannot say that. The Batangas culture is equal to the culture of other cultures in the Philippines. The Cavite culture and the intellectuals are equal to the rest. But I would like to introduce concepts today like not just equality, but equity as well. We need to teach our students that beyond equality is what we call as equity, taking care of the needs of other people and going beyond our comfort zones. So I would like to start with my premise that our adult learners came from the basic education with this premise that they already are holistically developed Filipino with 21st century skills, endowed with the 21st century skills. And in the K to 12 curriculum, it says that our students, from the course they're learning from the primary up to senior high school, they will acquire information, media, and technology skills, learning and innovation skills, life and career skills, effective communication skills, and will have different exits. Now, my point here is that while they're learning all of this in the basic education, they're also learning the following cultural identities and intellectual identities. That the intellectual and cultural identities that we help our students imbibe during the basic education are the core values of the Department of Education, which are makadiyos, makatao, makakalikasan, at makabansa. If you look at these four core values, we already have a basis of how we can help our students become intellectuals and cultural movers at the same time. So this is our premise here that when they enter college, or if they're still in the senior high school and they're transitioning towards college, we know now that they have one way or the other certain levels of acquisition of these core values, makadiyos, makatao, makakalikasan, at makabansa. So these four core values somehow has been part of our Filipino students' personality and attitude and core values as well. Well, that's my premise. Okay, that's my premise that when they graduate or when they finish the K-12 program of the basic education of the Department of Education in the K-12 program, our students have been helped by their parents and their educators and teachers and the whole members of the school community to be makadiyos, makatao, makakalikasan, at makabansa. So to go through my topic this afternoon, as usual, we will be answering the questions that I have pre-listed for you. The first question would be is for us to understand this concept. What is intellectual and cultural identity? We need to understand what makes a person intellectual, what makes a person gain certain cultural identity with the idea that we're always constantly struggling to be part of a social group or a cultural group. So we need to understand what we go through, what individuals go through in becoming intellectual and becoming culturally engaged. By this, we'll be able to help our students go through the process of being multiculturally engaged and intellectual at the same time. So we get to understand how we can help our students become who they want to be, or how they potentially will become if we know the processes involved in becoming intellectual and culturally engaged and socially engaged. So that would be number one. The second question would be, what theories and principles lend to understanding of intellectual and cultural identity development of individuals? We need to understand what theories. I know that you know all these theories already, but we are going to just, in passing, discuss all of these two theories so that we will understand that there are bases to such development and to such approaches. All right. And the third question is, how do the general education courses help in promoting intellectual and cultural life among adult learners in the Philippines? Last session, I already talked that. I ended my session by saying that we're not supposed to treat the general education courses subjects as remedial courses to our students, not just remedial courses, but also a transition course or sets of courses for our students to become more independent and confident learners who will become contributing members of society. And now we would like them to be more intellectual and culturally engaged in society, not just in the local arena, but also moving towards global, because what we want our students to become is to become not just Filipino citizens, but become global citizens as well. And now I will introduce to you an educational approach that I've been using this past few years in helping schools evolve from just being an ordinary school teaching academics to students, but to becoming more multicultural at the same time. So this is what I've been doing. And I think one school that has already imbibed multiculturalism is, again, Sisters of Mary, have fully incorporated how we design the materials, how we educate our students, have been fully incorporating the ideas of multicultural education. So I will share to you what we have been doing and how it can be done through your planning. All right. So the question would be, how do the dimensions, sorry, of multicultural education help teachers prepare general education courses that promote and integrate intellectual and cultural life among adult learners in the Philippines? And then I will show you how it's done. So we'll have a little bit of mini workshop in how the dimension of multicultural education can be used in planning lesson and GECs. I chose two subjects. I chose science and mathematics. And then we'll have a question and answer after that. So, and after the question and answer session, we'll have the conclusions and implications. All right, to begin with, let us start with the first question. So what is intellectual and cultural identity? By this question, we will be able to understand concepts as foundations for our understanding of the session. I'm doing this I always start my session with starting with concepts and then a little bit of principles and theories so that we can situate our understanding and discussion. I know that you are coming from different backgrounds of specialization in education, but I would like to establish the context and the situation in which my topic uh, would revolve around. Okay, so these are the concepts and the tenets. So let us begin with intellectual identity. All right. So an intellectual person is defined as who engages in works by intellect, including critical thinking and reading, research, writing, and human reflection about society. So we can say that our students are intellectual, not just knowledgeable, all right? There's a huge difference between knowledgeable and being intellectual. So of course, it's always a prerequisite for you to be intellectual, to be knowledgeable. But remember, we don't want our students to be just knowledgeable. We want our students to use knowledge that they have gained from the different subjects that they took in senior high school or junior high school or even elementary to the fore, and use this in order to critically address certain issues or perennial issues that's riddling our Philippine society or the international society or the global society. But then again, our students will not engage in this level of thinking if we do not create a certain environment where they will be forced to think beyond knowledge. All right. So again, for a person to be intellectual, they need to be knowledgeable. All right. So it's very important for students to actually learn a lot from a lot of information from the subjects that they take. That's why the curriculum of the K-12 curriculum helps our students gain a plethora of knowledge so that they will have a knowledge base for them to use when certain issues arise and be able to form opinions and come up with certain solutions based on this type of knowledge, this knowledge that they have gained from learning. So what is an intellectual life then? Now, intellectual life means it refers to the thoughts, knowledge, ideas, and problem solving that run through your mind. If you are thinking about how to submit the projects of a particular subject, how to pass to get a higher grade, to have a high grade, to pass a subject, then that's not an intellectual life. But if you go beyond your subject, like what would I do with my knowledge about algebra in addressing certain financial problems of people outside or certain architectural problems of people outside, or my knowledge of geometry, how would that help me become a better engineer because I want to be an engineer? So if our students are thinking beyond what they have knowledge acquired from the subject areas, then they are engaging in intellectual life. But then again, remember, how can they do that if we do not engage them in actually situating the knowledge that they have gained in a social issue? So this Monday, I talked about social responsibility and I talked about social inquiry approach. The social inquiry approach helps our students actually become intellectuals because we are helping them situate their knowledge, that the information gained from the subject area to certain issues prevailing the society or riddling the society. Now, what are things that we can do to help our students or ourselves become intellectuals and have an intellectual life? So I'm suggesting four uh, activities. This is what I've been doing this past few days. I'm not saying that I'm an intellectual person. I would say I'm still in the process of being intellectual, but most of the time I'm actually engaging into intellectual life. My thoughts would always be how to solve certain problems of society and so on and so forth. I'm not just thinking about it, but doing something about it. So things that I've been doing, which I think a lot of research also corroborates my suggestions, would be reading something that challenges your mind. So books about how to help you become a better person, books about not just academics, but books that go beyond your what you're comfortable understanding, like literature, reading a lot of contemporary literature. Also, newspapers would be good, magazines, keeping yourself up to date to information, current events. So that would help you become intellectual, because by reading lots of newspapers or even watching over the YouTube or the television about certain issues riddling the society, local, national, and global, would make us start thinking about things. What's my part of this? While listening to this, like this, the President Duterte Sona, by listening to it, we get to be intellectually involved. We think of, was that right? But have he done something better? And so on and so forth. All right. So by reading and by listening, not just reading per se, reading, listening, and viewing to something or issues that something that challenges our mind would help us become intellectuals. Next, that I would suggest for you to do and for your students to engage in would be talking and explaining your thoughts and ideas to other people. So having lots of discussion inside the classroom using inquiry approach, that again, going back again to the approach that I gave you last time, which is social inquiry approach, by engaging in the art of questioning, your students start talking about their ideas, and by encouraging them to talk about what they're thinking about, we're able to see what's going on inside their minds, and we become part of how we help them refine their thoughts. And that's part of the intellectual life, because your own thoughts, if not verbalized, are, in your own way, you would think that you're always right. But when you speak up your minds and when you speak up your ideas to other people, you are now making it public, and you are now allowing other people to say something, whether it's acceptable or not, whether your opinions are not founded or lacking in information, or highly opinionated but lacks certain factual basis. So it somehow refines the way we think. All right. Next would be taking on challenge or challenges that's just a little bit beyond what you think you can handle. A lot of people would just stay in their comfort zone. A good example would be, say, doing webinars, like doing seminars, or creating lesson plans or exemplaries. A lot of people would say, I don't want to do that. That's difficult to do. But we become better persons because we go up beyond what we are able to do at the moment, and accept a responsibility. And when we accept the responsibility, we try our best to learn how to do it. And by doing that, we gain more knowledge. And by gaining more knowledge, we become more intellectual person. The more things, more responsibilities that we take in, we become more engaged mentally. And since we're engaged mentally, we become more critical. We do research, we do reading, and then do writing, a lot of writing, and it refines our thoughts. Okay, so I think one of the things that I've learned from my mentors, Dr. Tatlonghari, Dr. Gutierrez, Dr. Sunga, Dr. Paralong Monron, and of course other people that have shaped who I am today, have always told me, never say no to opportunities like this. When you say no to opportunities like this, it's like saying no to growth, maturity, and improvement. So let us always help our students see that as we move on through the course of life, everything will be difficult as things become more difficult and complex. So if you don't prepare them to complex responsibilities while they're still in school, then when they go to the real world and have responsibilities on top of the other, they get suffocated, and then they get to think, sana estudyante na lang ako, ayoko na ng ganitong buhay. But that's how it is. You cannot stay in one type of life. We move on. We start from being a child to being a son or a daughter, and we become a student on top of being a brother and a student, on top of being a son and a daughter, and we're still brothers. And then on top of being a student, we've now become, members of, say, a choir in church. We become members of, say, a dance troupe, and so on. So as we progress in life, lots and lots of activities and responsibilities are added on to ourselves. And if we do not prepare our students to take on challenges while they're still at school and prepare them to take on these responsibilities, then I think we have failed them to become intellectual individuals. All right. And the fourth and last suggestion that I can give you, how we can help ourselves and others and our students become intellectual, is to listen constructively to criticisms from your trusted mentors. Now, it is very important for us to always to learn how to listen constructively. Sometimes our egos are easily wounded when we hear untoward comments from other people. Like it's normal. It's really is normal. Like every time it's not always smooth sailing in my career. There would be lots of times where during trainings, during my lectures, during my lectures in college and my grad school, that there will be other people dissenting with dissenting ideas, and other people who are not in agreement with my ideas, or probably have a different perspective of who I am as a person. But that should not stop us in moving on forward to becoming a better person. What I do is that I do not get angry. When I was young, yes, I get angry immediately, listening to people, having negative comments about my performance or my attitude towards things. But as I get older, we have to accept the age factor. As I get older, and as we get older, we need to learn to accept that these comments help us become better. It's just started pouring rain outside. It becomes better. But here's what I'm trying to say. Let's listen to this criticism, not just to any person or anyone, but to those we trust most. So when we say mentors, those we listen to people who are experts in the field, who are our friends, who have been helping us become a better person. But if we're only listening to ordinary people, I think their comments about us and what we do would be lopsided, because they do not know who we are and what we have done before to reach who we are right now. So sometimes it hurts. You don't have to fight them back or quarrel over their comments. Just shrug it up and say, you do not know who I am. And probably that's why, because you do not know who I am and what I have gone through, and the perspective that I'm coming from. And if you do not accept my ideas and you don't like my ideas, then well, I accept your comments, and that's about it. So you're entitled to your opinion and I'm entitled to mine. So no quarrel there. That's good. But if the comments come from your mentors and you need to do something about it, well, you have to listen very carefully. That's what I think I've been trained on. I've trained well to listen constructively every time I would present something, or I would teach something at PNU. I started at PNU being a lecturer. And there were moments that Dr. Tatlonghari and sometimes Dr. Gutierrez would sit down during my sessions. And after my sessions, they would ask me to have a closed door session or meeting with them. And then during the closed door, that's where we fight, we shout, they give all the comments, and it hurts so much. And sometimes, tears fall down. But at the end of the day, I get to understand where they're coming from. They're just telling me these things so that I can improve and to become better, to be better at my craft. And because they're doing that, they become part of my improvement, they part of my maturity. And this is what we want to teach our students, all right? Not just to listen to anyone, not to just accept criticisms from anyone, or to quarrel and to fight back over comments of other people, but choose which of those comments would help us become better and who is giving the comment. All right. So this is where we're coming from. And that's what intellectual life is. So at least that's clear now, okay? So an intellectual person is the one is intellectually engaged in critical thinking and reading, research, writing, and human self-reflection about society. So it's very important. And then that, and these are my suggestions how we can improve ourselves and help our students become, because remember, we cannot guide our students to become intellectuals if we are not intellectuals ourselves. So let's proceed now to the second concept, which is cultural identity or cultural engagement. So let's look at culture in general first. So culture refers to the totality of practices, belief system, be it tangible or non-tangible, tangible or intangible, which define one group of people in distinction from another. We would know that he's from a different culture when it does not coincide with ours, but it doesn't mean that because it does not coincide with ours, theirs uh, is lesser than ours. It's just it's not the same. So we just have to understand where it's coming from. Not tolerate. That's a totally not acceptable word for me. Tolerating does not necessarily mean accepting. So I would go for accepting the difference and trying to live harmoniously despite the difference. So the culture what we want our students to understand is that they need to have their identity of who they are, the personal culture that they gain at home, and then which is profoundly developed as they enter school, to the community, and socialize with other people. So our culture becomes a conglomeration, a combination of many factors contributing to that. So it could be culture that is, acquired in a local arena or local community, moving towards national identity and towards global culture. So what we want to help our students using the GECs is for our students to understand how can I retain my identity as a Filipino, or say a Bisaya or a Tagalog, and I am a Filipino despite the other different cultures in the Philippines, and how I can become a global citizen at the same time. All right, I think you would know how you can be like retaining who you are, not changing who you are just to adopt to the people that you are surrounded with. So assimilating is a very pertinent. Assimilating and accommodating is one of those words that we need to teach our students, not forgetting who they are, because if they forget and move aside their personal identity, their personal culture, as they move beyond their comfort zones, moving towards a bigger culture, they will get depressed and they will get so confused as who they are, and they will be unhappy because they're not comfortable as who they are. They will have different masks for different people that they interact with. They have different masks when they're at school. They have a different mask when they're at home. They have a different. I'm saying it's okay to put on masks, but it's so daunting and so tiring. If you can only have one mask with different colors in it, which people can understand, and we use to understand people, that's what we want our students. But just one mask that is highly modified, highly evolved to adjust to different types of culture. Okay. Now, what is cultural life then? So since we understand now what culture and cultural identity and how it evolves from personal identity to local identity to national identity and to a global identity, let's now understand what cultural life is. So cultural life refers to more to those practices which are not basic survival practices, but which enrich the lives of the groups of the members. Observe, you're not just only trying to preserve your culture by being part of it, by practicing the norms and the mores of your culture, but at the same time trying to practice and enrich it by making sure that your students acquire them and assimilate them as well. So what we want our students now is that they get to know, they get to acquire this culture because the teacher tries to design a lesson in such a way that our students learn their personal culture, the culture that they belong to, and at the same time learn other cultures in the process. All right. I'm not saying that the cultural life here does not necessarily mean that just looking at one particular culture. We go back again to my definition of the culture, that it's personal, going to local, going to national, global. That there's no going out, going not going with the flow of this development of cultural identity. So what we want our students is to understand who they are and still learn and become and improve their cultural identity by immersing and by knowing and immersing with other cultures. And there's a high possibility that their classmates are coming from different cultures and different intellectual perspectives at the same time. So having collaborative efforts and discussions inside the classroom and asking students to voice out their thoughts would also help our students see that, hey, that's why he or she has a different opinion, because he's coming from this perspective. But alas, again, we go back to what's saying as we have to help our students that no matter what culture they come from, we still go for universal cultures, right? I will not discuss universal cultures here. That would probably another topic to be discussed by a social scientist or social sciences expert. But that would be nice. How do we help our students learn universal cultures while learning their personal identities? That's something else. Now that I've thought about it, that's an interesting topic too, right? So what are the things that we can improve our cultural life? So these are the things: promoting Philippine music and dance, art, traditions, or other ways that bring the Filipino people together. I was amazed one time when I was invited by Father Tabora in Ateneo de Davao to do a training for some of the senior high school students when they were still putting up their senior high school. And when I did a training for some of the college professors who were teaching languages and reading literacy for the GECs, and they made me stay. What we call is the blue building in Ateneo, in the Ateneo, the blue building. That's the Jesuits house. And when I entered there, all the paintings and all the arts displayed there were all from the local people, and I was so amazed how beautiful it was, and how the atmosphere of the local culture and the local art and music and tangible elements of their culture are presented in the environment of the school makes me feel like being part of the culture and being immersed with it. And I'm so happy that like Father Tabor and other Jesuits and probably other schools are, trying to do in order to help students have a cultural life. We're doing that actually, like we're celebrating days, but that's not enough. If we can integrate, like what we can do is integrate music, local music, traditional music, art, to say IT, ICT, and so on and so forth. So that would be great for our students and for ourselves. Another one would be promoting and preserving the Philippine history and heritage, like talking about it, helping students, like they're like a forum where they talk about it. I would appreciate a lot of people doing TikTok, and instead of doing those Western based kind of nothing, it's nonsense. It's amusing, yes, it's amusing, but not lasting. Amusing but not lasting. I would say talk about, say, did you know that Lapu-Lapu and so on and so forth. So information based, promoting Philippine history and Philippine heritage and so on. Did you know that Philippines was sold to the Americans for blank amount during the mock battle and whatever, something like that. So it we transcend our learning, transcend our learning of what we have learned from school to the other social community platforms. So Facebook, instead of OOTDs. I'm happy about that. Like OOTDs, why not promote like happy for design the Filipino designs in clothes like this, or Filipino art. Why can't we do that instead of amusing but not lasting uh, posts on our Facebook? So if we can ask our students to do that, or come up with quotations that would help society promote their culture and improve themselves, that would be one. If you're asking me if I'm a charlatan, you may want to go visit my Facebook, and you may want to look at my thoughts of the day. I have, thoughts of the day. You may want to read my thoughts, and you would see how intellectually and culturally involved I am in the Cavites community and all other communities in the Philippines. All right. So next would be actively engaging against issues that endanger the human rights, people because of color, race, ethnicity, nationality, and socioeconomic status. I love what people are doing right now, especially the young ones. Especially there are a lot of senior high school right now who are talking and bringing their voices to the Facebook, to the IG about the movement of the government to uh, uh, to give tax to online business and to the creative ways of the Filipinos right now, in order to just to financially support themselves because of the pandemic and because they don't have work today, and putting their opinions and comments and making their voices heard by the government is something that's really remarkable, and something that we need to encourage our students to continue doing, because it helps them not just become intellectuals, but be of service to their own Filipino community, and go beyond their own selfish needs. So this is what the concept of cultural life, intellectual and cultural life. This is what we want our students to become. And I believe that our students in the K-12 curriculum have been, if not thoroughly, at least have been exposed to all of these two concepts, one way or the other. So this, at least we're clear that this is what we want our students to become during my talk. So let's now have what theories and principles lend to the understanding of the intellectual and cultural identity development of individuals. All right, so just to go through it, I would say I'll be using Piaget's and Dr. Su and Su's cultural identity development theories. So let's start with the Piaget intellectual development. So our students, our adult learners right now are in the formal operational stage. That means they're approximately 12 years old and above, and they're now thinking more about moral, philosophical, ethical, social, and political issues that require theoretical and abstract reasoning. So that means our students at this age are now ready to take on lots of concepts that pertain to helping them think of solutions, think of action plans to address certain prevailing and perennial issues in the Philippine society, if not Philippine society, the global society. But if you ask me if we're doing that inside the classroom, I would go for local issues first before we move outside. We would like our students to feel success first, that they're able to address a simple cultural issue or a societal issue in the locality before they go beyond. Because if they feel daunted on their first attempt to do an action plan or social action plan, they would not continue doing that. I think that's human nature, when it's like twice bitten, twice warned. So students would say, why would I do that when I will get hurt in the process? Why would I be doing that when people are not even listening? I'm just one person with a lot of people doing things that are untoward the society and untoward the environment. So something like that. So another one would be, our students at this stage are now starting to use deductive logic. That means from a general perspective going to specifics, or reasoning from a general principle to a specific information. That means they're now absolutely being able to think of, 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 of topics and concepts that are broad in perspective and be able to dissect it so that they can see the details. All right, they are capable of that. But remember, they arrive at this stage because they have gone through appropriately through the three stages. Sensory stage, approximate birth to 3 years old. That means the parents allowed their children to do trial and error, to learn things via their senses, so and so on and so forth. And then on the pre-operational stage, approximately 2 to 7 years old, the parents and the teachers facilitated and help the students, the learners, improve their language, because there's a high relationship correlation between language development and intellectuality. So the more languages, the more cultures our students are exposed to, so the more intellectual our students. A good example would be students learning a language in mathematics, language of science. They are English, yes, but it has a different context. So our students now operate in different contexts, thereby lending more types of thinking, the way they think in school. So they now move on to concrete operational stage. So the hallmark of pre-operational stage is symbolic language or symbolic thinking. They're now able to see the relationship between their thoughts, the language, and the objects in their environment. And then concrete operational stage is where now students are becoming operationally, we call it operational thought, meaning they are now starting to procedurally thinking, that they can follow steps, moving towards an abstract, although they're still concrete learners because they have to follow, they follow steps, they need to follow rules. Nonetheless, they are now learning that there are certain parameters of their actions and their thoughts. And then once they are taken care of, well, basically with the help of the parents, and then we have the involvement of both family and the school, well, I would say the community too, our students are actually on the formal operational stage, thinking more about moral and philosophical ethical skills. So that's what we want our students here. What I'm trying to say here is that our students, if they are not at this stage thinking like that, then something happened before that. It could be during the concrete operational stage, or during the pre-operational stage, or during the sensory stage where the parents are too scared to allow their kids to explore, or during the pre-operational stage where the parents and teachers were scared to allow the students or the pupils to socialize with the others. And in the concrete operational stage, teachers were so afraid of allowing the students to use the books or the science apparatuses for fear of, kids destroying this apparatuses. So these things somehow lend to the intellectual capacity of our students at the stage of 12 years old and above during the formal operational stage. All right. So let's now understand how we develop our cultural identity. So again, we start with conformity, meaning we are immersed to a particular culture, not the other way around. It's not, we are not born with a culture, we are immersed with the culture, okay? So as an individual is immersed to a culture, a particular culture, again, remember it's a journey. Every now and then we are always immersed with, different cultures, whether we like it or not. The process of immersing and learning other cultures would stop when we're already dead. But since we're socializing with other people, we cannot help but learn other cultures. So the first stage of that would be conformity. It's either this is the stage where you think that okay, wala namang pinagkaiba, sorry to shift to Filipino, wala namang pagkaiba, parang pareho lang namang aming pareho lang naman kami, or ala, bakit iba ako sa kanya? So dalawa, there would be two ways how an individual would see. Either I'm less than this person or this group of people, or these people are, not as better than I am. So dalawa po yun. So nonetheless, the conformity would be individuals, whether they like it or not, will have to be forced especially in school, especially at work, especially with, situations like in the market and in different social situations, will be forced to conform one way or the other. A person who's not able to conform to society will be ostracized, or will be as some will be connotated as someone who is not able to adjust to the society or the culture. Edi, ang tawag ko doon nung nagtutura ko, kung ayaw mag-conform to society, because the society will not adjust to you. It will always you adjusting to the society, but, remaining who you are. And kung hindi ka makapag-adjust, as gusto mong sarili ka lang, magbuo ka ng sarili mong kultura at magbuo ka ng sarili mong lipunan. Alright? But since you can't do that, or not doing that yet, so we go through this normal stage. Next would be dissonance. Bakit magkaiba ang aming views? So yung conformity kasi superficial encounter, like nagkausap lang biglaan, tapos classmates lang the first month, parang nag-a-adjustan pa, still conforming to each other. But habang tumatagal, nakikita mo na magkaiba ang aming belief system. So ang aming behavior magkaiba. So there's dissonance. Like, why is what I believe as a culture should be is different from what you're doing. So bakit ganon? It's either the processor is either the person would reject the culture, that culture, and impose his or her own culture to others. It's normal, okay? It's normal. It happens. Kahit magkakaibigan naglalaglagan, itong sinasabi na naglalaglagan sila, nagkakainisan, nagkakainisan sila. Dissonance happens, okay? Wala namang dalawang tao na magkapareho sila ng, ng kanilang mental capacities and same level of cultural engagements. So once dissonance is accepted, so papasok na ngayon ang resistance and emergence. Sabi niya na, hindi pwede yan. Iko-continue na. Kasi it's either sink or swim. So I have to survive, because like in school, they need to survive at school. They cannot say, I don't want to go to school. So that's why there's a downside of doing homeschooling, because our students are what's that word? The students doing homeschooling would be deprived of more socialization skills with their peers and other people that they may encounter at school and other possible school engagements. So by doing resistance and immersions, our students get to understand, start to see that I have my own identity and they have their own. So why not one way that let them understand who I am and I'll understand who they are, but I don't have to fully change who I am. No, I will not change who I am. But we can, we can work together. All right. The next would be introspection, thinking like this is the stage where may maganda sa kultura na yun eh. May pangit sa akin eh. Oh, siguro ang gagawin ko, tatanggalin ko tong behavior ko na to kasi sa kanila dun eh. Like when I was in high school, I had a classmate who was a Bible Baptist. Okay, I'm a Catholic, a Bible Baptist, and she became one of my core barkada. And we were maloko kasi ako. I'm a kind of student. I was so amazed at her study habits. Like if there's no teacher, she would rather read in advance than go outside, play sipa. May sipa kami nun, sipa sa Leyte National High School. Sisipa kami sa labas. She would rather read than, help us, go with us and play outside. And I was amazed, like her grades are better than mine in Filipino. Why? And then made me think, ang kultura niya kasi sa kanila na nag-aaral talaga, na sinanay sila na if you have free time, you have a free will and you have a choice. It's a choice whether to play or to use it in worthwhile things like studying for your future. So one way or the other, I assimilated. I tried to do that, and then I said it works. Okay, so meron pala. Okay, once I realized that there is something that I need to change in me to become a better person, and part of their culture, of their behavior, can be adopted, that I can adopt, so I can, shed that part of me and get that part that would, complement and make me a better person. And then becomes the integrative awareness. I realized that it's a combination of who I was before plus the new culture. And that's what's happening. And we help our students go through this. But how can our students learn to integrate the beauty of the best of other cultures if we do not allow our students to be exposed to these different cultures? Otherwise, if we don't give our students the opportunity to be exposed to other cultures, then they do not know other cultures beyond theirs. So we're helping them, we're teaching them become egocentric. We're teaching them sinocentrism, that their culture is better than the rest. That they think that their culture is a powerful culture over the rest. Like kagaya ng ginagawa, mga dati, pag taga Maynila, pag umuwi sa amin sa Leyte, naku, sikat na sikat yan. But ako hindi. Bakit tao po din, ang sa utang, bakit tao din naman siya? Pag siya nandito sa aming lugar, siya mag-a-adjust, hindi kami mag-a-adjust. Yun ang paniniwala ko noon. I was in high school then. May mga pinsan kasi kami na taga Maynila, uuwi. Pag umuwi parang mga Diyos sila. Ako hindi. Ba't ako mag-a-adjust, di ba? Sila mag-adjust because they're entering my culture, my society, and they're supposed to adjust. Well, I would equate that to, I was thinking that way. I was intellectually thinking that way. I was culturally engaged that way because my type of education in elementary from Divine Word University and my education in Leyte National High School, research and R&D, helped me become more aware that I can improve who I am by integrating the best of other cultures in other cultures. So that's how cultural organic happens. And that's what we can do to help our students become better individuals. So let's now proceed to our next question, which is how do the general education courses help promote intellectual and cultural life among adult learners in the Philippines? So let's now understand the role of these courses in preparing students for adult education and social interaction. Let me just check so on time. Okay. So the subjects literature, again, I'm just, citing a few of the general education courses. The language literature, the math courses, the natural science courses, information technology, physical education. These courses were designed by CHED and other experts coming from the higher education institutes, like we have courses, of course, University of the Philippines, Santo Tomas, Ateneo, state universities have come together to help to design this GECs, general education courses, to help our students engage in thoughts, knowledge, ideas, and problem solving that concern the society as a whole. So thereby making them intellectuals. It's not a remedial subject. It is helping our students become intellectuals. The discussions in the GECs are far beyond what students have taken in the senior high school or the junior high school. And I believe in the senior high school should be that too, since the senior high school is bridging the gap between the exits, the higher education, the workplace, and other middle skills exit. But it still should allow our students to become intellectuals, all right? Not just knowledgeable or academically good, but intellectuals who use this knowledge for the gain of other people, not just themselves, but look at what they can contribute to society as a whole, all right? And then thereby knowing that they are now engaging in these thoughts of these ideas, teachers can present in each subject or collaboration of this subject issues in the local, so that's issues in the local issues that students can situate their knowledge and mental activities in solving such issues. All right. And then once students are able to do that, we proceed to the national level and then to the global level. If you observe that the way we do it's like a ripple effect, all right? It's in the perspective of GPU, gradual psychological unfolding, under the principles of psychogenesis. The psychogenesis, I think one of them I've read about is Yet S. Goodman's psychogenesis. Very interesting interesting book to read. So do read about that, where we help our students gradually be immersed with, a level of understanding, a level of performance, a level of engagement at a level where they are comfortable first, moving to a little bit difficult, and then moving towards, the most difficult. We do not start with the most difficult part, otherwise our students will shun away from that engagement or that activity. We start with, again, remember, the education means start where they're coming from. So we start with that. Start with, making them think about it, start the seed of an idea, and then start in, what if there's an actual problem happening here in, say, in Cavite? What will you do? Knowing this now about the subject that we were learning, or the lesson we're learning, how do we use that knowledge now to address that? All right? Like your lesson is, say, forest denudation, something like that, the causes and how to mitigate, forest denudation. I forgot that word, destruction. Okay. So we have then moving towards natural engagements and culture. So the problem with, I'm not really not the problem, but the challenge here for the teachers is that the subjects here are designed individually, but the teachers in the senior high school and the college level can come together. I know that in the past, a lot of teachers are doing, planning by department, planning by college. But if they can come up and say, okay, let's talk about this semester. How can we come up with a more holistic way to help our students use the knowledge of the subject they're taking for the first semester, and come up with an action plan to actually be involved in cultural and social concerns. All right. There's a question though. I would like to post that. Okay. Later on. So that's the role of how the GECs were designed in such a way that they become intellectuals. Again, they will become intellectuals and become culturally engaged and engage in cultural life and intellectual life if we design our lessons using these GECs in such a way that would make our students start thinking about issues, solving, critically thinking about that. And next we have the last question. How do the dimensions of multicultural education help teachers prepare the GECs that promote and integrate intellectual and cultural life among adult learners in the Philippines? So like you just to direct your attention to the first picture, which is equality and equity. The difference between equality, we are equal means we have all the right to watch TV. We have a right to watch a game, right? So bahala ka. So you will be allowed to watch it. But the understanding of equity is that yes, we have a right to watch it. But we have to go beyond equity. I will help you watch it. I will sacrifice mine. I will give mine, part of me, of what I have, so that you can watch comfortably. Diba? Matagal ko na pong sinasabi na let's go beyond equality. Let's go for equity. Okay? Okay? Equity is a better concept. But let's talk about justice and rights. Walang pakialam may equality and equity. Paano kung yung mga nagbayad? Diba? Kaya nga may mga laws. Kaya nga yung piracy na yan, yung mga piracy na, you have a right to watch the movie. But then again, what about the rights of those who shelled out the money to direct the film, to make the film so that can watch it? Why don't you buy this? There's intellectual property for that. So there's a higher. So for every concept that we teach our students, there must be other perspective that should be included so that our students are thinking holistically, not just in one perspective. And that's what we want our students to become, holistically developed. And they're not only thinking of one perspective, their perspective or someone else's perspective, but all other perspectives possible so that they become, better persons, critical individuals, hence intellectual and cultural, and living an intellectual and cultural life. So the question is, If a teacher is of a different culture or background than the students, how can she or he work to better teach them? That's a huge struggle for teachers, especially that their culture in terms of their uh, generation is different from the culture of the generation now. So how do we bridge the gap between the teacher's culture and the student's culture? Well, I've been using Dr. James A. Banks' multicultural education approach. All right. So Dr. James Banks is a Black American, very brilliant, interesting person, and I encountered him way back in the early, and I think to 2010 when I was doing research in Singapore for the books that I was designing for the Philippines. I was so astounded by his idea of making materials and preparing the curriculum, preparing the lessons, the learning materials in such a way that it is multicultural. And his idea of multicultural is students who are intellectual and who are culturally engaged in societal issues. And considering also, of course, that considering the idea of constant diversity, he said that whether we like it or not, we will always be constantly be faced with diversity. All right, even at home, and there will always be diversity. Each social situation, wherever you are, is always a diverse situation. So there is no such thing as uh, one culture. Even within the culture, there will be diverse, no, personal culture, because of personal identities. Okay. So he came up with 5 dimensions, and he came up with the first level. So this is in stages. So the first level of to be able to do multicultural education to enrich the students is enrich students' intellectual and cultural life is starting with content integration. The content integration, what we can do here, I will not use Dr. Bank's example because he's been using the US examples and historical, is to integrate historical accounts and social, probably people in history or current people or events that are relevant to the lesson being discussed, all right, and bring that to the world. So content integration is not just teaching the subject, but thinking of going beyond the subject or integrating within the subject a possible relevant, okay, historical event in the Philippines, or not just the historical event, but a happening, could be current, that is relevant to the lesson, and then using that as something that students can use that as a springboard to appreciate the content and bring that to the global arena and how it affects the world with the world culture. So it is adding on to the subject, to the content, that anything that would help our students understand uh, the lesson in a more contextualized manner. I think we've been doing that in the Philippines because of the word contextualization. We've been doing that. So content integration is simply put as doing contextualization. What are examples? How can we contextualize it here? Say in Cebu, how do we contextualize this in Leyte and so on and so forth, or Bicol, and so on and so forth. So that we've been doing that, but that's not the end and all. According to Dr. Banks, we need to move on to knowledge construction, meaning we need to provide our students perspectives like what is the perspective of other people to the Philippines. So we need to know how people perceive. We presented a particular society in the content integration, a particular culture in the integration, and that would like to see perspectives like how do they see themselves. All right, how do they see themselves? That's one perspective. How do others see themselves? That the members of the community. So that would be perspective of others. Now, if you were looking at these two cultures, now from the observer's perspective, now what do you say? So by giving our students different perspectives, our students value, okay, see that there's a value of listening and understanding people, all right? Not just tolerating them, but understanding them and accepting them, and coming up with a compromise, and then be able to see that there could be a way to see unity of all these perspectives. All right. Now, the knowledge construction can be the one that I gave you. An approach was social inquiry approach. For content integration and knowledge construction, that can be done. You may use the social inquiry approach, and we can actually do content integration and knowledge construction through that. Next, we have the equity pedagogy. Equity pedagogy does not necessarily mean that we have to take care of the students' learning styles. For me, when we say we need to address the individual learning styles of students, it's putting them inside a box. Remember that they have to learn other learning styles. They have to go beyond their learning styles. If students are audio learners, they have to start with their being an audio learner, but they have to move to other learning styles. The idea of equity pedagogy is reinventing our way of teaching so that our students acquire other learning styles so that they can learn to adapt to different situations. Because if we only just focus on helping our students learn in their own learning styles, then that's not teaching them how to adjust. It's teaching them to be egocentric, that I don't want to adjust. This is who I am. You have to adjust to me. That's not how it is. Again, we are always being immersed in different situations in different cultures and society, and we must be equipped to adjust to that, but not necessarily forgetting who we are. By equity pedagogy is we try to adjust the way we teach a certain lesson to make sure that our students are, acquiring other learning styles. So that's equity pedagogy. Next would be prejudice reduction. By discussing and allowing our students, well, I would say here that teachers should have mastered the art of questioning. I would probably promote Dr. Suma's book on the art of questioning. I'm sorry, Vival, but bless her soul. May she rest in peace, Dr. Suma, one of my teachers in my PhD at Santo Tomas. She was brilliant. She was good at making us develop our art of questioning, which I've been also talking about. I've been giving a lot of trainings on the art of questioning. Probably we need a training on art of questioning, but I have a different way of, art of questioning than hers. Anyway, by asking our students questions, really mind-boggling questions, our students are able to voice out their thoughts based on the lesson, of course, still based on the lesson. And then via that, we do not say you're wrong. No, we ask other students, say, do you agree with her? So what's your thought on this? We, as teachers, withhold our own opinion, our own answers. But what we do is we ask our students different answers so that they see that given a lesson, students are coming up with different ideas. And then by that, they get to understand that, hey, I'm coming from a different perspective. And the job of a teacher is to mitigate this different ideas and opinion, but not saying what's right and what's wrong, or labeling the one student's answer is wrong, one student's answer is correct, but making them, consolidate their ideas, thereby reducing prejudice and biases, because we're now allowing our students to speak, but at the same time listen to others, and that's what's important. Not just listening. Remember, critical thinking, the intellectual life that I've said. The fourth suggestion I gave is listening to mentors, listening constructively to the criticisms of the mentors. So it's very important for us not just to always speak. I know a lot of Filipinos are good speakers. We speak and talk at the same time, but do we listen? Right? So one way of doing prejudice reduction is allowing our students to speak out their ideas and their thoughts, but at the same time teaching them to listen to others, and at the end of the day helping them to consolidate and consolidate all their ideas together. And then by that, the school should promote, if that's what we're doing in every subject area, in every classroom, the school, like all teachers, should be doing that. Hindi pwedeng yung pag hindi pwedeng na ang mga teachers ng mga social science teacher, mga terror. Hindi, dapat all teachers in the school should promote the culture of equity pedagogy. Hindi lang teacher nagagawa ng multicultural education. Dapat lahat ng teacher. Kasi otherwise, may mga estudyante na magsasabi sila na bakit ito ginagawa ng teacher sa social science but hindi ginagawa yun doon sa other subject areas. So multicultural education is not only for science and not only for languages and humanities and for arts, for humanities na yun, for the arts, but also for the science, for the math and sciences. All right. So let's try how we can use. Let's try using that in two subjects. All right. So sabihin nyo, sir, paano naman ginagawa yan? Okay, let's do a mini workshop on how the dimensions of multiple education can be used in planning lessons in the GECs. Okay, syempre mini workshop ako pa rin nagawa, okay, since you're not here with me. But hopefully you get to learn the process. Okay, say our lesson, I got this book from the VIBAL GECs, GEC series. So the title of the book is Environmental Science Towards Sustainable Earth. Written by Ruth S. Guzman and Ruth Marian Guzman Genuino. All right. Say Unit 3, the title of the Unit 3 of the book is The Role of Humans in the Whole Ecosystem, and the lesson is all about, say, I took a lesson in Unit 3. The lesson is Global Population and Population Ecology. And the lesson objectives are, we have explained the principles, explain the principles of population ecology, describe the current global population and how it affects the ecosystem, and propose short and long-term social action plans to address a perennial global population issue, which tremendously affect the ecosystem. Very good, very interesting set of lesson objectives, which via the objectives alone, from these objectives alone, you can see that there's already multicultural in how the material was developed. Well, thank you very much, whoever wrote this book. All right. So if I'm now going to plan out the lesson on this lesson in Unit 3, say global population and population ecology using the multicultural education, I would probably start with, I will definitely start with content integration by integrating concepts of minority and majority population. All right? Like, meron bang nasasabi ang minority sa mga desisyon ng mga ekonomista? Halimbawa, may nasabi ba ang mga content integration? Meron bang nasabi ang mga locals ng Boracay sa mga pagbabagong nangyayari sa kanilang lugar dahil maraming mga businesses na nagtatayo na hindi naman taga doon. Pero ang nangyari ngayon, ang mga locals ng Boracay, sila na dati sila ang nakatira, sila talaga ang locals, sila ngayon ay minority na. That's a good and what happened now is that they would like to have a clamor on preserving their ecosystem, the Boracay, the island, making it still worth living, pero may siba sila kasi minority na sila eh. Something like that, okay? So that's a good content integration. Like, it's a good, pwede mag-start ang lesson. Like, you can ask students, I would like you to look at what's happening in Masbate. So the teacher could start with, assigning the students to look at certain issues in the Philippines that has to do with global population and population ecology, all right? So some of the students will be grouped into small groups, small groups, of course, will be grouped into small groups, and each group will be assigned a particular place in the Philippines, which, certain issues on global ecology and global population and population ecology. I would go for Boracay. I would also go for Tawi-Tawi. Okay. Another one would be investigate also what's happening in Masbate. Another one would be on the mining areas. A lot of things that was happening. Sample lang po yan. All right, that will be content integration. Then by asking students to do research, okay? The next would be knowledge construction. I will ask students to develop varying perspectives. Like, kung sa Boracay, anong perspektibo ng development, ng mga kapitalista? Anong perspektibo ng development sa perspektibo naman ng mga locals. Ano naman ang perspective ng development sa Boracay ng mga terrorists, sorry, tourists. Okay. So, hindi lang titingnan dapat ng, we are teaching our students to be fair. Remember, we're supposed to eventually help our students to reduce their biases and prejudices. So, by helping our students look at these varying perspectives, we get to see, oo nga, no, paano naman ito? So, that's why when we do social action plan, we're looking at the various stakeholders that may be affected by the project we're coming up with. I think that's what's happened in the Philippines. A lot of people who are intelligent, who have become entrepreneurs, who have become businessmen, but because they lack knowledge construction, being the capability and the ability to look at what could be the benefits or the effects, the adverse effects to the people, other people that may be affected by this project or by this business. If there's certain negative effects on this certain groups of people, what could be my solutions to alleviate or to lessen? In fact, na dapat hindi lessen is dapat to avoid this kind of problems. All right? So, ang tawag natin doon, discussion. So si teacher would now use social inquiry approach. Coming up with questions. Bakit? Kung ganyan ang proyekto ng gagawin mo, ano ngayon ang mangyayari? Anong epekto niyan sa? Alright, di ba? Ang ganda. It is still science, alright? Hindi ibig sabihin na pang social studies lang to. We're just looking at the perspective that science and ecology can coexist. Social science perspective can coexist with the perspective of science or teaching science. Next would be equity pedagogy. Now I'll ask my students to go back to their own groupings, original groupings during their research activity. And I would like them to come up with a project, project 2 for learning competency number 3. Propose short and long-term social action plans to address a perennial global population issue which tremendously affect the ecosystem. So whatever society or culture that was been assigned to them during the content integration will be their basis also for coming out the project to solve the issue that they have identified. At least just focus on one issue. I know that in the process of doing research, they will unravel various problems in the culture or in the society, but let us start with the most easy first, so that it will be easy for them to come up with a project base. And then our job here is to facilitate success. All right. Once our students get a taste of success, they can get enough of it. They will be doing it for the rest of their lives. Okay. And then finally, we have prejudice reduction. Would be now asking them to present and present it in the classroom. And then the job of the teacher is to process using the art of questioning. So we're now processing their project-based activity, looking at now making them understand that if the project that they came up with, did they consider all sides, all people that may be affected by all of this? So one way or the other, you are not asking them to holistically and generally ask them to consider all possible groups of people or living things for that matter in coming up with those projects. And then of course, the empowering school culture as a social structure could probably support that by if, say, a group of students in the class came up with a really good project-based activity or project-based proposal, they will propose that and it will be spearheaded by the school. So nakikita ng mga bata, hindi lang pang classroom. So pag nakapili pala sila teacher, pwede naman lahat, kung maganda naman pala talaga nagawa ng mga bata, yun ay ipapagawa at suportahan ng school at ginagawa. Like what's happening in Benedictine Institute of Learning. They're doing that. It's just a subject of their social science or mathematics and other subject area coming up with the horizontal articulation of the performance-based activities, quarter-based activities, and they actually go out and help the students actualize their action plans in the community. And then the students get high and the family and the parents get so high of the successes that their kids experience in the process, and they will keep on doing it. All right. Let's try this now with mathematical and with the math subject. Okay, mathematical ideas and tools for the modern world. written by Ian Garces, a good friend of mine from Ateneo, Valer Buot, Dilara Tuprio, Garciano, and Sarmiento. Let's say the unit title in the book is entitled Managing Personal Finances. And the lesson is all about financial literacy. And the lesson objectives are explain the importance of having financial literacy, describe varying misconceptions of people towards savings. Describe varying misconceptions of people towards savings and investments. Three, propose short and long-term social action plans to address a prevalent misconception of people towards savings and investment and to help them to start saving and investing. Wow. I'm blown away by this lesson objectives. All right. So let's say I'll be the one planning, I'm the teacher handling the subject, and I'll be planning it out using the multicultural education dimensions. I will start with content integration. I would ask my students to research local and global entrepreneurs. I would probably start with the local entrepreneurs who overcame their poverty, become, successful in their entrepreneurial ventures. So that it would be now a springboard of helping my students look at the perspective of someone who did everything to achieve their entrepreneurial goals in life. All right. So again, research. I'll go for always. I think it's important that independence. We ask our students to do research all the time, and then ask them again to develop varying perspectives, like not just the ones who succeed. Let's say you can ask your students during research how the people working for that person uh, uh, treat them, and what do you think made him successful? And also probably asking the person to talk about his success or the family, the parents, perhaps the friends. So you're looking at different perspectives, how the person became successful, right? So by asking this, not just the person how he succeeded, we're asking also other people that may have have interacted with him tremendously, would have also a say, a perspective of what success in their perspective is. All right. Once done with that, I would now plan my students to go into small groups and come up with a performance, and think of how could they propose short or long-term social action plans to address a prevalent misconception of people towards savings and investment and help them to start saving and investing, considering, of course, the indicators of success they got from the different perspectives of the chosen person, the chosen entrepreneur. All right, their chosen entrepreneur. And then during the prejudice reduction, I can ask my students to do a mock presentation of their activity, of their performance. And during the mock presentation, I can ask questions again, but through the art of questioning, and allowing the other students also to ask questions about the project or the performance, the action plan they will come up with, so that it can be refined. So via that, I'm now giving my students the opportunity to talk, but at the same time listen to the comments of their classmates and to the professor or to the teacher. And then, of course, again, the school should support that whatever performance-based activity or action plan that the students come up with, the school should support it too. All right. Now, I hope that I know it's so quick how it's done. I could have asked you to do it with me, think with me, but we don't have the liberty and time to do it together. So I just prepared in advance all of this so that you can see how, one way or the other it's done. But I would love to do it with you and think in the process, given the kind of learning competencies provided for in the book. So at this point, I will now be entertaining questions from you guys. Thank you very much. So Kia, hi.
Yes, Brother Ricky, good afternoon. Thank you so much for your discussion po. Now, let's entertain questions from our viewers. So first po, the question is from Miss Christine Garcia. Sir, how important for the children to teach them in their mother tongue, How can they be at least learn how to speak in English even if mathematics will be in their native language?
Wow. Okay. Let me correct that first. The mother tongue instruction does not necessarily mean, say, especially for mathematics, does not necessarily mean that the technical terms in math should be translated in the mother tongue. So the concepts, the technical terms in mathematics and sciences are still to be retained, only that the explanation is in the mother tongue. So thank you very much for that question on the mother tongue, because it's within the perspective also of multiculturalism, that we want to teach our students literacy and numeracy in the language they're comfortable with. And then when we say mother tongue, it's the identified language that our students have been exposed to early on at home. It does not necessarily mean the community language or the language of heritage. It could also mean other languages like Chinese, for say, for the people, let's say in Binondo, some of the families there would opt for Mandarin for their language at home. So it does not necessarily mean it has to be Tagalog. Depende po yan. Not necessarily because the children are living in one community that they would automatically be using the language of the community or the language, heritage language. My point here is that whatever mother tongue is identified for the students, it's easy for them to, you're already thinking about that. The language that they grew up in, that's their way of processing information. So one way or the other, they have reached a certain level of intellectuality, critical thinking level, using that mother tongue. Because if they're now using that in their in the intellectual level, it's easy for the teacher to transcend that to reading. So kung ano ang kanilang nabibigas na mga salita sa mother tongue, madali nilang siyang ipabasa sa bata. Kung madali pabasa sa mga bata, madali siya magsulat. So that's the explanation why it's easy for our students to teach. It's easy for parents and for teachers to teach literacy to young ones via the mother tongue. Now, when we transition their mother tongue to say to Filipino to English, if their mother tongue is not Tagalog and not English, so the transitioning there is just looking at the concept. Ibig sabihin, magkaparehong konsepto. Halimbawa, avocado. Pareho lang naman avocado naman sa Tagalog, di avocado din. Pagdating sa English, avocado. Magkaiba lang ang pronunciation. But meron pong magkaiba like apple, iba yung word. So apple, kung meron kang picture, concept would mean, pictures, mental images. So apple, tapos apple pala siya tinuro sa mother tongue. Mansanas kunwari, mother tongue. Sasabihin ng teacher ay, ano yan sa English naman? Oh yes, that is ang tawag niya apple. But then again, we're not sure of the vocabulary of our students right now, because even if it's in mother tongue, say Philippine languages as a mother tongue, some of our students' vocabulary are in English. Like in the counting, mas sanay yung mga bata sa counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's their mother tongue in mathematics, at hindi 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. Or sa aming sa Leyte, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So most of our kids right now are more into counting in English than in the mother tongue. So if we say and we prescribe that their mother tongue is, the waray-waray, then we're not considering their mother tongue. So the point here of to summarize my answer to is that the mother tongue of the child should be highly identified and meticulously identified by educators, so that they will be able to help students, utilize the language in an intellectual pursuit towards reading and critical thinking, thereby, appreciating that language in their culture and be able to use the language in academic fora like reading and writing, presenting and all, and use this to be able to understand what's happening in their environment and society. So mas madali kasi mag-isip pag sa natutunan ang bata mag-isip gamit ang isang wika na komportable po sila. Thank you very much.
Okay po, Brother Ricky, thank you so much. As much as we wanted to answer more questions, let's have our last question po muna because of our time. So our last
slides pero ang dami ko palang sinabi.
Okay lang po, ayan po. So for our last question po, this is from Miss Rufina Nofuente. Good afternoon po. Ano po kaya ang klaseng group work ang pwedeng ipagawa sa mga bata sa panahon ngayon?
Well, you can do, yun ang sinabi mo kanina, is to help our students bring their voice to online platforms like the IG. Kanina sinabi ko na mas maganda na tinuturuan natin ng mga bata na yung kanilang platforms to be, advocacy campaigns. Right now would be nice. Advocacy campaigns and then things that they can do at home. Like halimbawa, kung ito po ay tungkol sa planting, to solve, the global warming, they can start, planting trees at home, planting plants, planting na lang, planting plants, planting, ecologically acceptable, I think, ecologically acceptable plants for indoor at home, something like that. And then, or probably they can come up with a campaign that can be posted and gain comments, would receive comments from others in the IG, Facebook, and so on and so forth, and helping them to become more worthwhile individuals and not just posting their OOTD of what they're doing right now. And I'm so shocked a lot of students right now that they're bringing themselves to Twitter and into other online platforms. And I have nothing against that. I have fun watching it, but again, it's not worthwhile. It's not what we want our students to be doing. It's not something that, our students will be doing forever and, would be worthwhile for their career. So, marami ko nakikita sa TikTok yung paano magluto, yung paano sila nagluto, how to do things better than they have been doing before, or nagtuturo ng mga rules ng grammar and so on and so forth. That I think is a better way of doing collaborative work. They can come up with someone's their collaborative, make the script together. So they will be researching the script together, put that together. They will choose who will be talking online. I-record pa rin nila, tapos ipapapunta sa classmate na magagawa ng mga words where digitally enhancing the material. That one I would say a better one. Na kung hindi naman po online na mga platforms na gagamitin, pwede naman po mga individual presentation. Kailan kawawa si teacher kung individual presentations ang gagawin tapos i-online pa niya. I would rather suggest na pre-recorded po talaga. Pre-recorded, isasabihin kay teacher na given date, sa si teacher ay individual check-in. Yun ang ginagawa ko dati sa De La Salle noon. I would have asked my students, although group pa rin ginagawa ko, to do their they would in my class, oral communication class, I would ask them to choose a commercial that is that has subliminal message that destroys cultural perspectives, and then what are their ways how to improve, paano nila ma-improve yung commercial na yan. So they created a commercial and then they improved the commercial, something like that. So these are the things that I could see that you can come up with for the students in the new normal. Go to the platforms, use the social online platforms as basis for their performances and projects and presentations. Thank you.
Okay po, Brother Ricky, thank you so much for addressing the questions from our viewers this afternoon. So before we finally end, let's now proceed to your final reminders or the conclusion and the implication of the session.
I'm sorry again that I ate so much of your time, but these are my conclusions and implication for all of us though. So every classroom is culturally diverse, okay? That's constant. No two individuals will have the same level of intellectuality and cultural engagements. That's again a fact. Intellectual and cultural diversity of students collectively is the core of every learning situation that all teachers in the world have to contend with every day, all right? But what I'm suggesting to you, implication would be, as teachers, let us utilize these diversities to facilitate learning, maturity, and intellectual and cultural growth of our students through the GECs. By allowing our students to participate, stepping back a little, gradually, letting the students take the center stage in the learning process is something that is as acceptable, especially right now. There's no way, there's no choice for the teacher but to be planners and facilitators, and the students are actively engaging in the learning. Whether we like it or not, we are forced to make our students active learners and decision makers of their learning. And the teachers right now are becoming more facilitators and planners of the learning process. And by this, we are now helping our students, even if in the previous years they were more of a listener than of an active learner. So they are now gradually being introduced to a new normal, which is, they are supposed to be responsible for their own actions and their own learning and their own maturity. With that being said, thank you very much. And I hope to see you next week when I talk about teaching comprehension of informational texts and other topics that I'll be delivering next week. So thank you very much. Have a good afternoon and see you again next week.
There we have it. Thank you so much, Brother Ricky, for spending your afternoon with us, sharing your knowledge and your expertise with our viewers for today. Thank you so much po, and we'll hope to see you to the next sessions of Brother Ricky. Then to all our Kabibal viewers, thank you so much as well for spending your afternoon with us. We're hoping to see you again for our session tomorrow and for next week. So once again, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone.